HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food and beverage radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. We've been making cheese in Wisconsin since before we were even a state, which may be one reason why we win so many awards for it. It's what happens when a whole state dreams in cheese. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his groove in them rhythm and blues. That's him. It's gonna get you son in the end.
Welcome back to the Speakeasy. We are coming to you live from Heritage Radio Network in Brooklyn, New York. We're actually in the studio for the first time in years. We've been doing the show remotely. I moved out to California, but also, the thing is, it's, COVID really shut us down, and this is really cool. It's crazy being back in the studio. I can't believe all this alcohol is still here.
Right, like sort of a ghost ship. I came in, and the table is still here with the mics all rigged up and the headphones and the liquor cabinet still chock-a-block. I'm pretty sure there's some bottles on top that I placed up there that haven't moved an inch, and it's like, I don't know, it feels good to be home, but it also feels a little strange, like untouched, like haunted.
I mean, I agree. I agree with the ghost ship thing, because I was definitely getting kind of like a Raiders of the Lost Ark vibe coming in here, and I realized that I would be terrible at like excavating ancient tombs, because like immediately I came in and I was like, ooh, this all looks old and cool, and like no one's guarding it. Like no one's gonna notice if I just slip this into my pocket on the way out. No one cares. Yeah. So yeah, don't ever send me on an Indiana Jones expedition, guys. I'd be the guy that took the idol and then got scared. I'd be the Alfred Molina of that expedition.
Well, the last time you and I were in the studio together, Greg, was March of 2020. The last
March 11th, 2020.
The last show we did was with Chaim Dowerman and the team from Up and Up.
Mm-hmm.
Chaim has now left the field and is working on he's soon to be a rabbi. So that tells you how long it's been since you and I have been here.
It's been a while.
Damon hasn't been here since 2019.
Late 2019, yeah. I would have been here in December of 2019, I think it was.
And we've been doing the show remotely, and it works out great. I think we're all going to continue. We are going to continue to do the show remotely. Yeah. Damon's only in town for the weekend, but super glad you're back. Why are you back in town? What have you been doing?
Well, I'm still working in the booze biz. I wanted to come back. My wife had some work stuff to do here, and I, met up with my team at Grand Army and one of my business partners, and just a lot of catching up and kind of refreshing. But the thing about New York City is while I was telling my wife about this, and probably a really terrible analogy. I was like, it's kind of like going back and visiting and seeing an old girlfriend that has moved on without you, and you're kind of jealous, but you gotta be excited for her, So
at what point in this did Jamie walk away from
Yeah, exactly. She's like, get the fuck out of here. But what I mean by that is there's been a lot of changes. What sucks about it is a lot of our friends' bars and restaurants and businesses have gone away.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also some refreshing, new stuff that's around. And New York it'll move on without you.
Sure.
It doesn't need you, but it's great. And like, there's some really magical things that have happened. It was great to see a lot of the old places that are still around. One of my favorites, Keen's Steakhouse on 36 and 6th.
I mean, been there forever.
1884, I believe, or 87.
Yeah, unique and interesting place. They have the world's largest collection of clay pipes. And you get to learn this when you go there. And they're all they cover the ceiling of the place, which is humongous. Given where it's at, you'd think, why is this place so big?
There's like 4 bars in the place.
It's because when it was built, there was nothing there. It's a block away from Macy's, the world's largest department store, and they have all these clay pipes up there, and they have labels on them to who owns them. Because back in the day, the clay pipes, you didn't travel with one. You literally just had one everywhere you went. They were too fragile. Right, that's the whole point of that.
Right.
Anyway, I'm getting off on that. But I love that place too, and I know that you used to have sort of a regimented, like I do Gibbs Sunday over at Bargoto.
Mm-hmm.
You used to have your thing on
every
your
Monday
day off. Every Monday,
I'd go there for lunch around 1 o'clock or so, like before it got too busy, and get a spot at the main bar, which is downstairs. It's on the right side of the building, and I would have a Gibson and with Boodles gin. That was always still is my call. And then, have a surf and turf and some wine, and then go guitar shopping or hat shopping at JJ Hat Center, just a few blocks away. But the thing is, so I went there with my wife, and we had a reservation, and we got into the bar, and there's only a few people sitting at the bar at this point, and I see this guy kind of lean out from his bar stool. He's at the very first bar stool on the far end of the bar, and he kind of just looks at me like, "What the hell?" It's Dale DeGroff. And I go.
Who also doesn't currently live in New York City.
yeah, but it's Manhattan Week,
right?
And, here. So he's sitting there with another author, Philip Green, who wrote the Manhattan book about 10 years ago or so. And yeah, they were just like, they're like, "Damon, what the fuck are you doing here?" And I'm like, "What are you doing here, man?" Like,
right.
And so he bought us a couple of Negronis with his the DeGroff aperitivo, and then we had a Manhattan, and they invited me to their event on Monday night, and it was just so great seeing so many friends, and there was Dell and Philip Green and Amanda Schuster. We love all of them, right? Mm-hmm. And but it was so much fun. We got to hang out at this Manhattan event, and then Amanda and I went and closed down the Ear Inn, which is I think it's like the second oldest bar in New York
another
City. Legendary
spot.
So yeah, it's just that's the magic of New York City.
I was about to say before we got on air, but Greg rudely interrupted me and told me to save it for the air.
There was something smart that was about to come out of your mouth. I didn't want it to disappear into the ether.
I don't know if it's smart necessarily. It's an observation. I think New York City is one of the few cities in the world that you can go to with a definite plan in mind, and you can knock out a bunch of great stuff, or you can come here with no plan and knock out a bunch of great stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think there are other cities where it's not necessarily that easy. You're going to have to make a plan. And I think that you went to Keen's to show Jamie your old tradition there, and then that led to meeting up with Dale and Philip, and then that led to going to this event and hanging out with Amanda. And
you can just ride the wave.
Yeah, exactly. You catch the wave, you ride the wave.
And that's BQ, who going up and many other cocktail forward things. That he posted something today on the Instagrams. He was like, I ran into this guy 3 times over 3 days, and we had no plan for that. Yeah. And it was awesome. It's
a small town, man. It really is.
It really is. At the end of the day, it's like the biggest little town.
It's a tiny town full of friendly people.
Yeah. And like you said before, you mentioned just like being able to go on that ride, like ride that wave. It's kind of like if you let it take you away, it will definitely show you around,
What is this giving you all the feels? Are you going to move back to New York City?
Man, I would. So I gave up my apartment here.
It's a gotcha moment on Speakeasy.
Yeah.
Hard-hitting journalism you've come to expect from this show.
Jack Inslee used to have a tiger sound. It was the gotcha tiger.
Yeah.
So whenever we do a gotcha moment, I would love to have a place here again. But I'm trying to New York is always going to be, I still pay rent here.
Yeah.
But it's for a bar.
Right.
Instead of an apartment, which, like I'm never not going to have a toe in the pond, if you will, in New York City. It's always going to be part of me, and hopefully I'm part of it, too. But it's also just, California's kind of a thing right now, and who knows? I might not. For me, California might not be the end. It might be like New Mexico or something. But New York was, it's always going to be a part. So yeah, but it was really great seeing all those people. And then yesterday I got to go to Nacho's new place, Super Bueno,
which it is Super Bueno.
So awesome.
Really dig that spot.
Really, really wonderful people working there. And
did you try the sopa del dia, which means soup of the day?
Yeah.
So you know.
News you can use here on this show.
Yeah. But it's not soup. It's a drink. It's on the drink menu. Did you try it?
Yeah.
It blew me away. The first time I've only had it 2 times, but the first time I had it, I was so blown away. For the listener, it's a beer set. So it's a Monopolio beer dressed with their house-made hot sauce.
Right.
It comes on a little wooden tray sort of thing with a copita of raicilla, right?
Yeah.
Or is it sotol?
I think it's sotol.
Sotol.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Monopolio, house-dressed hot sauce, sotol, and then a little what you would expect to be your sangrita is in a little shot glass, and it's the liquid from their birria tacos, and it's hot.
Oh,
I think that's the key.
Yeah.
That it's hot. So you've got this little set that's familiar but unfamiliar and savory and hot, and it fucking blew me.
And
away.
especially,
my mouth is watering right now.
I know.
And looking at all the pizza at Roberta's, but
yeah. Well, it was great. It was perfect timing too for my wife was telling me, she was like, why do we always go to New York like in the dead of winter? So it was actually really perfect yesterday when I was there. Yeah. Just the warmth of that and just everything.
Was Nacho there?
Yeah, I got to see Nacho.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was lucky that I caught him because he was like kind of in and out, and I'm really happy that we got to do that. And my plan for today is later on I want to go to Katana Kitten, see Masa, another one of the greatest hospitality people, and
a militant hospitalitarian. This man will force you to have fun.
Yeah, I wonder how many different kind of hats he's going to wear, how many costume changes.
Yes, it's like going to a Beyonce show.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. There's a reason when you think of Wisconsin, you think cheese. Cheese is a huge part of Wisconsin's history and future. In Wisconsin, the state of cheese, the tradition of cheese-making excellence began 180 years ago, before Wisconsin was recognized as a state. Immigrants traveled to settle in this lush green hills of Wisconsin, bringing their cheese-making traditions with them. These storied skills, combined with the freshest milk available, created a cheese-making culture that is uniquely Wisconsin. Wisconsin's 1,200 cheesemakers, many of whom are 3rd and 4th generation, continue to pass on old world traditions while adopting modern innovations in cheese-making craftsmanship. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
I have a road trip. I'm Lou Bank.
And I'm Greg Benson.
And this is an ad for Ancestral Agave Syrup, the critically acclaimed award-winning syrup that helps gringo bartenders better make margaritas, Negronis,
Lou, hold
and
up. Wait,
old
are you just
fashions?
This is how you start your podcast.
What?
It's not an ad for Ancestral Agave Syrup.
Well, of course it is. I'm just cutting costs by not paying writers to make something new. I'm just using an old script.
You pay writers?
That's some kind of jab?
No, I'm just saying that.
What are you saying?
Well, look, we've got this amazing syrup that's made in an ancestral manner, cooked down from the sap of the agave, harvested the way these families would to make pulque. It's a quality product. It deserves a quality presentation.
Yeah, okay, hang on.
Ancestral agave syrup is made by real families following traditional methods. Unlike the industrial Blue Weber syrup you get everywhere else, Ancestral is cooked down from agua miel harvested from Salmiana in Hidalgo, Mexico. It is the grade A Vermont maple to the sticky diner syrup you've been using for your cocktails. Ingredients matter, both in how your cocktail tastes and how you treat the earth. Ancestral is better for both. Is that good?
Sure. Or maybe confusing instead of cheesy. Look, just visit ancestralagave.com to learn more and to order your world-class agave syrup today.
And we'll call that a wrap. Catch you next ad, Greg.
Hasta pronto?
Ancestral agave syrup. Available online at ancestralagave.org and wherever Greg and Lou are able to coerce store owners into carrying it.
Well, I guess we should address the small elephant in the room. It's just the three of us in the studio. We're live for the first time since March 2020. We did have a guest scheduled, and we're hopeful that they show up before the show is over. But we had to get started without. There were train delays, et cetera. It's New York City. Who knows what's going on? But I just wanted to throw that out there so that the listener can stop anticipating our terrible segue.
The magic.
Let's bring in our guest today, Mr. Damon Boelte.
Yeah, there we go.
In town from
Perfect.
California.
Love it.
Well, it's a real pleasure being here at Roberta's because, I've been doing this show now for almost, it's going to be like 14 years.
We just crossed the 13 mark, so yeah, we're headed towards 14.
But it's just again, it's one of the coolest spaces. If for any of the listeners out there that haven't been to Roberta's, you really got to come in here. It's a little bit of a trek if you're staying in the city, but it's not really that far. It's worth it. The best pizza and the best Caesar salad. I want to say probably the best Caesar salad in New York City, and that means a lot for the rest of the world too. But we've been doing this radio show for a long time, and as we mentioned before, with our guests, and the idea of this show was to essentially bottle the conversation, the kind of shop talk,
right?
But have it live on air with people in the industry. So just looking around the studio and looking at our bar in here, I kind of wanted to call some of these guests and products out that have been on the show for in the past, because it really is kind of like we archive all the shows obviously on heritageradionetwork.org, and you can go to Spotify and Stitcher and many other
we're on all platforms.
We're all platforms,
terrestrial and satellite.
But yeah, exactly. But there's when we started asking guests to come on from, it ranges from like authors and bartenders and bar owners and managers and whatnot, but
doorman, cocktail servers, like we've had them all. Everybody. And I love that it's exactly what you just said. It's I think the listener gets a fly on the wall opportunity to listen in on a after hours conversation. Since it's not after hours, it's noon, conversation, among people in the industry, which is us and our guests.
Well, so in one of those guests, and actually it was our last trip right before COVID shut us down. We got to go down to Oaxaca with Bonnes Mezcal. And you were just talking about the Sother, in like having like a copita, although it's a toll. This trip for me has been, and there's a lot of agave and obviously in California, where I live now, but there's something about drinking mezcal in New York City that just feels like invigorating in a different way.
Sure.
And maybe some of that is like sense memory for me and us going on that. Greg wasn't on that trip. It was just me and Sother. But it was one of those things that like drinking mezcal typically it's associated with like warm weather, right? And like you're in Mexico, you're in Oaxaca, right? But there's something really pleasing to me about drinking mezcal in the wintertime in New York City.
Sunshine in a glass.
It's kind of like escapism, right?
Yeah, of course.
And we definitely need sometimes we definitely need some escapism especially in the winter.
I mean, they
especially
made a
in New
movie
York.
about escaping New York. I don't know if you know.
Yeah. Worked out pretty well for that guy, didn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, so what are Greg? I mean, like you. So we just to let the listeners know, we did find serendipitously we had 3 mini bottles of Fernet in the cabinet here, which we took before the show.
Had is the key word.
Yes.
We had them.
We still have the mini bottles.
Yes.
Yeah, the bottles are still here. And they'll probably be here for another 4 years until the next
I'll
summer.
put them back as a relic.
But Greg, what's your go-to these days? What are you?
What occupies the heaviest rotation on your home bar shelf?
Oh Jesus! I mean, I do a lot of mezcal. I've been definitely moving the direction of just kind of drinking shit neat. Like that's kind of my whole thing. Is like I found out that my local liquor store stocks Schladerer's Kirschwasser. So like that's been a real big hit recently. Yeah, man. Yeah,
I love schnapps. Like it's a very specific type of drinking experience, right? Grappa and schnapps, and it's very, very good in the wintertime for sure.
Exactly, and it's wildly underrated. It's one of those things where it's like this has, it's just weird, the things that like we historically have selected to be like this is important, and then there's all this other stuff that's over here. And a lot of the stuff that usually gets lumped into like the other stuff category is stuff that is not made in Europe, that is not historically made by white people, that is kind of like, oh yeah, and then there's this thing over here. I mean, that's what happened with vodka up until honestly about 60 years ago. Like people looked at vodka as this thing where it's like, oh yeah, they do, those weirdos over in Eastern Europe do that, but like we don't drink that here, which is wild to think about now that it's completely eaten the world of spirits, but here we are. But it is kind of bonkers to me that like Kirschwasser, which is delightful and wonderful, and I wonder if maybe it doesn't occupy the same spot in our sort of consciousness because it doesn't have the same like mixing capability as some other spirits perhaps, but because it is very, you can taste the cherry, and I feel like the cherry would come through, but also like with the gin, you can taste the botanical, like you can taste the juniper when that comes through. I don't know. I will say I actually have been on a bit of a cocktail making binge, which is weird for me because I stumbled across the list of that Punch published recently of like forgotten classics that you should definitely know. So like the Moonraker's on there from Shannon Tabay, who's a friend of the show. I've been vibing on this one called The Cloister, which is gin, yellow chartreuse, grapefruit juice, and lemon juice. Right. And it feels like it should be from the Gilded Age. It's actually from the 1970 Playboy Host and Bar book. So it's a wonderful little drink, and just such a weird, fun little thing to play around with.
I took a flask.
Sounds like a wacky Hemingway.
Yeah, I took a flask of chartreuse up to the Cloister. I went there once, like further up in Manhattan.
Oh, the Met Cloisters, yeah.
Yeah, so I went there and I
beautiful.
I snuck in a bottle of chartreuse just because I was like I have to kind of have a cloister at Cloisters.
You feel like you're out of New York City when you're at the Cloister, and you're definitely still in New York City. Like totally. The views up there, the vistas, the Cloisters itself, I don't know, it's really gorgeous.
So what about another some old cocktails that come to mind with when it comes to Kirschwasser? There's kind of there's one that comes to mind right now for me that could go either way, and it's kind of debatable, but like remember the Maine, right? So some people will make it with cherry hearing, and other people have made it with like Kirschwasser. I personally like it more with Kirschwasser.
It's drier.
Yeah. But like, if you're talking to like Greg Baum from Cocktail Kingdom, he's a huge collector of like vintage cherry hearing. So he might, go the other direction. Have you messed around with Kirsch and that?
No, I have not. But now I'm curious because I teach this is one other thing I've been doing since the last time we're in here is I've been teaching a lot of Zoom classes. And one of them I do is kind of, whiskey through the ages. So I wanted to start with, it's a cocktail class. So I wanted to start with a Scotch cocktail, but there really aren't any. And I didn't want to start with the penicillin because, it wouldn't have made sense with the chronology because I'm kind of talking about like whiskey's origins. And here's a drink that was invented less than 20 years ago. Right. So I kind of wound up on the Blood and Sand just by default, sort of. Yeah, I know. But I've been, it travels a different path through life than I do. That's what I'll say. But I haven't tried it with Kirschwasser instead of cherry hearing, and
I
that has me a little
tried it
curious.
once
I bet that
before.
might help, but you know, the inherent issue with that drink is the orange, right? We're
Yeah.
always going to stumble over that. So the fix for that is acid adjust your blood orange juice,
Right.
and then you can really get a little bit more traction. We were doing that at Booker and Dax back in the day, which helps the drink a ton, but it still doesn't really bring it home, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I
think
made
it's a square peg round hole situation where it's a drink that's on the books, so we kind of have to like acknowledge it and deal with it. But I don't think it's ever gonna make a name for itself. It made the story is that it was named after a movie about a bullfighter, blood in the sand, right?
Yeah, well, allegedly made for. I found one origin story that was like, this drink was made for the premiere of this movie that came out in 1925,
Mhm.
and I kind of like anyone who's listening to this show is probably thinking 1925. Why does it seem like that would be a bad year to do a cocktail party?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess
Halfway
it
through
was
Prohibition. Like,
yeah,
none
but
of
that's
it.
the thing is like it's a great name, and
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the reason why
Is
it
it
stuck
though?
around.
Is it? Because okay,
Blood and come on,
on.
dog.
blood and
That is
dirt. I was
Blood and
It's-
dirt would be an interesting. If I
I was
ever do a
saying-
riff on it, I'm going to call it that.
Yeah, we're gonna call it dirt in the wound.
I was semi-famously quoted
Just rub
in
some
Bon
dirt in it.
Appetit magazine many years ago by Andrew Knowlton, and I was at some cocktail party. I think it was like Astrid Center or something like that. And he was interviewing people, and he was like, "Damon, so what do you think? What are your cocktail predictions for like this 2009 or something?"
Sure.
I was like, I had had a few drinks. I was like, I think mud cocktails, cocktails made with mud, and they fucking printed it.
Right.
And so like anytime I think about like, because he and I used to joke around about the blooded sandwich, being like, that doesn't really, it's a cool name for something, maybe not something you're gonna drink. I don't know, but anyway, I actually made one for him probably around that time. But I was going down to Court Street Grocers down on Court Street, this is back when I was at Prime's, and they had all these like kind of vintage sodas,
Mhm.
Just like stuff that like glass bottles, screen printed labels,
Sure.
like old like Big Reds and RCs,
Cheer
and things
wine
like
or
Cheer
what
wine,
have you,
yeah, they had that there, and so
Moxie.
I made one, yeah, I made one with like an old like orange soda, and it was actually it was like a highball
To be honest, I could see that being better than the original.
than the original. Yeah, it actually worked.
This can bring some sharpness and some like the bubbles
You
are
need
gonna be
to see.
cleansing. Yeah, the cocktail itself as written is just too flabby.
Yeah.
Like it's
So what
hard
about
to-
you, Sother? What are you working on these days? Or like what are you drinking, enjoying these days?
Man, it's no secret. I think that I'm a big drinker of American whiskeys. But I think, and I don't think this is a secret either, but I think just people don't know this about me. I've been drinking like more like cognacs and brandies. I got a hold of a limited release from our friends down at Highwire Distilling. They've been on the show. And they released a peach brandy, which is the first peach, like actual peach brandy, not peach flavored. Peaches made, right? Apparently the first peach brandy to be produced in America in like 100 years.
Really?
And it was dry and fruity without being cloying and sweet. It was so delicious. I got myself. I grabbed 2 bottles. Had a buddy down there ship them up to me, surely legally.
Of course.
Yeah, let him off the hook. But I got 2 bottles. I got one for my head bartender Bruce. That was over Christmas, so we enjoyed those. And I drink some cognac, and I drink a lot of apple brandy, and I don't know. I think my taste is turning towards brandy, fruit
Yeah.
distillates more than grain distillates these days. But everything comes and goes, ebbs and flows.
I'm right there. It's kind of
And
interesting.
you've been working in brandy for the past 3 years.
Totally. I mean, I've always been a big fan of brandy, and I think, we're talking about cherry brandy, Kirschwasser, right? And then we're talking about the peach brandy and like grape brandies. I've always been a huge apple brandy fan,
Mhm.
right?
Of
and
course.
especially around here,
Yeah.
There's something really nice about what's happening in the world of brandy right now, which is so it's strange to me that it's taken so long for people to start getting turned back onto brandy. I mean, brandy makes sense in New York City for sure. I mean, there's always the brandy library. I mean, and like Death and Company's always had like several different brandies.
I mean, and Lisa Laird's impact on the industry in the past
Absolutely.
15 years.
Totally.
You know,
Yeah. And so it's it's interesting to see what's happening with brandy right now, and I'm sure in no way it's going to be as impactful as like the mid 2000s when like American whiskey was like blowing up. But the thing is, when people start realizing, your general consumers start realizing what, just say like a cognac or an armagnac is, it's distilled wine. So you say if you like wine and you like whiskey, it's kind of like those things together. You know, kind of, but just going back to, we're talking about some classic cocktails like Blood and Sand. There's a world of brandy cocktails that is so important for the history of classic cocktails. Things like the Sidecar and the Crusta and like all that, but
Stone Fence.
But there's so much room for like modern mixology to like really like take the flag and like plant it, and do something. We've been lucky enough over the past, couple decades to like, have the, like you were talking about, like Sother, on the today, like, have like products kind of like come to the light for the first time for, I'm air quoting, for, most general consumers. Right. But to have something like brandy that's been around literally longer than any other thing, and strangely enough, like not too many people are working with it.
Yeah.
It's just right there. It's right in front of you.
I think,
as was famously said about brandy, you're a fine girl.
Fine girl.
What a good wife you would be.
Yeah.
But my life, my love, and my lady
is the sea.
Is the sea. Yes.
I think there were years that went by where you were talking about predictions with Andrew Knowlton, which, by the way, I haven't even thought about that kind of. Wow, where did he come?
He moved to Austin and he opened up a couple restaurants.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
But there was those years that went by where it was like, everybody make your prediction for next year, and everybody's prediction was rum and sherry, rum and sherry, rum and sherry. And
2024 is the year of sherry. I can feel it. I can feel it.
Neither of them ever took off. I feel it's kind of like we're in that sort of spot with brandy too. It's like
brandy and sherry go really well together.
It's primed for the pump. It's just not taken off. And I think, I don't want to get too like deeply philosophical here, but I was a butcher for a long time, and I'll tie this back together. Hang on.
Where's he going?
Well, what happens? What happens is everybody wants prime rib and tenderloin. They want the ribeye and the tenderloin, but there's a whole cow here we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Everybody just wants the quote unquote best, and I think that when we get to that
tartar guy myself, so
so we can use up a lot of stuff for you. But when we get to that place where we're only seeking out and using quote unquote the best pieces, right, then we're neglecting all these other pieces that are equally delicious and wonderful. And I think maybe, in that analogy, maybe the hamburger is really taking off now. George Motz has his American burger thing going on, and it's sparking interest in that, which is made from not the ribeye and the tenderloin. So we're using those other pieces. So we just got to figure out a way to create avenues for people to use these, in this analogy, off cuts in a more efficient and exciting way. I don't know. I don't know if this analogy holds water, but like, I feel like we're always just like, I only want to consume the best of whatever this category is, and then a larger scope, as you say, then of the categories, what's the best category? So we're just going to consume that. That's why vodka is taken over, right? Because it's the cleanest. It's the it's the most usable in cocktails. It's the whatever.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. I just think that we kind of, this obsession of like, oh, what's going to be the next mezcal? Like, we've been talking about that for 10 years now. Yeah. And I think maybe it's just time that we as an industry acknowledge that, like, there's just something unique about that. Like, maybe it wasn't the moment. Maybe it was just that spirit. Like, that spirit came along at exactly the right time.
Mm-hmm.
It was familiar enough to drinkers that they knew how to relate to it. I mean, like, you get my whole thing about mezcal has always been like, it took off because it's funky and weird enough to appeal to the freaks like us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, you can describe it in 3 easily relatable words to every single person who's added a cocktail before on the planet: tequila, but smoky. That's it.
Sure.
And
I think that's not necessarily true.
Yes. And obviously that's a gross oversimplification. But if you say that to someone who like is like, oh, mezcal, what is that? And they're at a bar and it's Saturday night and you're 6 deep, you can say it's tequila but smoky, and they'll say, oh, that's cool, I'll have that.
Right.
Like, and then they've tried it and then they know that they like it, or they don't. But most
So
of the time they will.
Are you trying to maybe allude to the notion that maybe in this case work that we're working on right now, that maybe brandy doesn't have enough
I'm saying
brief
that,
words that we can attach to it that are exciting?
no, I'm saying that I think we need to
It's
acknowledge
whiskey,
that
but
there's
made from fruit.
yeah, that's the thing, is there needs to be
Whiskey for wine drinkers. That's what I've always said.
I like it.
but then there's follow-up questions to that. Then there's like, oh, really? In like what way? Like there are no
Sure.
follow-up questions to it's tequila but smoky. People
Right.
like that is the end of the conversation. And I think maybe we just have to acknowledge that there isn't going to be an ex mezcal, that mezcal took off in that moment because of what it is and what that moment was. But also I think there's kind of an opportunity now. I mean, all of the data points to the fact that we're getting this is also the weird thing about live radio, is where I haven't been in this like monkey enclosure for a while with people looking in at us and just being like, hey man, hi. Yeah. There was a table.
Waving at us.
God bless the folks at table 42 who just left, eating their pizza with a knife and fork. They were wildly entertaining. But I didn't
think we were ever going to get on air with them sitting there eating their pizza that way.
We were fascinated for like 5 minutes just watching. And it was one of these great, like, welcome to the monkey house moments of like, who's watching who? Just a real panopticon thing with our little airplane bottles of Fernet Branca.
Yeah. Tell me you're not from New York without telling me you're not from New York.
Yeah, right.
You're going to eat your Roberta's pizza with a fork and knife.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you caught the visible shock on their face when they first looked at the bill. And I was like, yeah, if we weren't sure that you're in from out of town, now we
we're
know.
buzzing.
Sorry. Come to New York. New Yorkers are super friendly. Anyone who's not listening here, we're not all snobs, I promise.
We didn't say this to their face.
Well, we kind of did, but behind a relatively soundproof piece of glass here.
Yeah, they couldn't.
Hey, hear that?
Hear.
Yeah, see, that's the sound of courtesy,
that's the barrier,
folks. But I think that we are kind of in a moment now where, I mean, all the data is showing that like people are drinking less, and that's having a huge effect on. I mean, was just doing a little research about the effect that that's having on beer right now, and I think that could potentially drive something that's not going to be the sort of, gushing oil well that mezcal was, but it is an opportunity to drive interest in these like spirits that maybe have taken a back seat for a while, that are maybe a little bit more esoteric, stuff like Calvados, which I think is one of the best things that human beings make with our hands. It's fucking incredible, and it is wildly underrated, probably because it's hard to get your hands on and expensive. But I think that if people are prioritizing the experience, quality over quantity, then we can see a rise in like some of these.
I think you're right. That actually makes a ton of sense to me. If people are gonna drink less, they're gonna want to drink better.
Right. This all happened in like 2008 when the market crashed and everything. And that was coincided with the whole like growth of American whiskey. But like when you look at the actual numbers, if you look like Nielsen reports and things like that, what's happening right now is people, sure, they're drinking less on just the number, the figures of like what the dollars are, right? But they're actually drinking more spirits than and less wine these days, because people are starting to realize, and this is kind of like,
is that a bang for your buck situation?
It is to a certain degree, like, because I've been working in spirits marketing for the last 3.5 years on brandy, and California brandy or American brandy. But the thing is, like, when you put that, you're talking about the same liquid amount in the bottle, 750 milliliters, right? And we kind of like hold like fine wines on this certain pedestal, and then like the spirit. But like when you think about like 4 glasses of wine versus like 12 to 15 pours of brandy or whiskey or whatever, it really starts to make sense there. I'm really digging the fact that, and I think as far as the market share goes for spirits, it does seem like American whiskey has been slowing a little bit, but I think it's because of the saturation of what's happening.
I'm saturated.
But like, there are just more brands out there, and people are realizing we can't, like, it's fucking ridiculous to like pay what people are charging for a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle, and that's been going on for years. But some things that we're kind of starting to see, like just on the metrics alone, is that there are just so many more new distilleries that are actually at the age now where they have product, they have the juice that's been in barrels long enough to not be like super fresh and green on the whiskey side. That's been the problem. There's been a lot of pushback and a lot of like kind of shit talking for like newer whiskey distilleries in the United States. They just like, there's two parts of it really. It's the fact that they're green, they're young, they're not mature enough, right? But then also, you know, any one of them could just be buying juice from like MGP,
Right.
or you know, or
Any one of them,
TDI,
and
you
most
know.
of all of them.
And most of all, yeah. So,
Anyone and most of all.
and I think that's leading consumers to kind of check out different spirits, like that's kind of what happened with mezcal, honestly. But going to brandy, it's like you're like, wait a minute, this is like legitimately like decades old, and it's actually, or sometimes even older than that, like Calvados, or like you said Calvados, but like Armagnac. Cool thing about Armagnac, it's that really is the whiskey of the brandy world, you know.
Right.
It's like, so like I found there's a lot of like crossover from like whiskey drinkers over to brandy with Armagnac in mind. But I don't know, some of the newer ones to me that I'm like, I think the takeaway from this is like we're really into fruit brandies right now, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I love
It seems
I
that way.
love
You heard it
Pear
here
Williams.
first. This is going to be the summer of fruit brandy.
Yeah,
let's go.
Pear Williams eau de vie. Oh my god, it's like, geez, it's like that's some of the best things I've ever put in my mouth. You know, like
Let's get that in the blender and whip up some summer drinks.
yeah. And you know, there's also, you know, you mentioned Sother and Kirschwasser. They make a really great Pear Williams as well.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, that's the way to go. There's also like there's one that's, to me, where we're talking about apple brandy, we're talking about pear brandy now. Obstler. Do you know what Obstler is? It's basically it's a mix of apple and pear eau de vie, and that to me, like in a highball, is just, it's transcendent of seasons. You know, it doesn't have to be pigeonholed to one.
Apple and pear.
Apple
eau
and
de
pear.
vie.
Yeah.
Obstler. All right, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned, now that we've talked about a bunch of fruit brandy, let's back up to what you mentioned earlier, because I wanted to get some more information about it, because I feel like I have my finger on the pulse pretty much of this industry, but I didn't hear about this at all. It's Manhattan Week.
Right.
Yeah, this was news
so
to me.
you-
The
so
guy who's in from the other side of the continent informed both of us who live here that it's
who
Manhattan
live
Week.
in or around Manhattan.
Yeah.
Look, it's always something week or
Agreed.
something day.
Agreed.
right?
Agreed. We all know that. But so yeah, talk to us a little bit about your experience with Dale Gruff, King Cocktail, and Manhattan Week.
So okay, yes. As I
And
mentioned before,
did either of you or both of you bring guitars and play music together again?
We
like,
talked
like
about-
you've once done here at Roberta's Pizza.
I think we did it twice
Yeah?
actually. I just have the one photo from.
But I
one
mean
of them.
live on the air. Yeah.
Yeah. So Manhattan Week. So really what's going on here is like, you know, we have Negroni Week and things like that. But I mean, we're in Manhattan, or we're in New York City. So we should definitely have a Manhattan Week. I've actually thought about this for years now. And then finally, it
You've
seems
been
like they're
noodling
doing
around
it.
with maybe writing something down about it.
Right. Yeah. I messed around with writing a Manhattan book. But Philip Green, who was there, not yesterday, Monday, he was sitting with Dale. He wrote a book about the Manhattan cocktail. They were two of the three presenters along with Amanda Schuster. Now, what happened here was, you know, they got up and they talked about like kind of Manhattan cocktail history. And then, obviously there was a lot of, industry folks and enthusiasts there to celebrate the beginning of Manhattan Week. It's just one of those things that should have existed long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who's been in this industry long enough, they remember like the Manhattan Cocktail Classic, which was
MCC.
one of the greatest. I mean, like it was held at the New York Public Library.
It was so fun.
It was kind of like the Met Gala for cocktails,
Mm-hmm.
and there was, that was the last time I had a finger
Just as
stirred
expensive,
Negroni.
but less fancy dresses.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
it wasn't that.
But yeah, it was a black tie kind of gala, and it was celebrating not necessarily just the Manhattan cocktail, but cocktails in Manhattan,
Yes.
right? And I often thought that like there needed to be something like this. So that's what's going on this week. So there are a lot of it's kind of like restaurant week kind of
Anybody
things,
cleaning
like,
it? Anybody speardoing it? Negroni Week is Campari. Is there anybody like backing this thing?
This was held by it was DeGroff's Aperitivo. He was making what he called the Midnight Manhattan with. It was Angel's Envy was the whiskey sponsor, and then he was using his Amaro. Really simply, those two ingredients.
Yeah.
Kind of like the guys, like kind of like a Black Manhattan minus the bitters. So, and it was a really awesome event to go to because got to run into people from all over the city that I hadn't seen in a while. Lincoln Chinnery comes to mind. Awesome dude.
Lincoln Wrights.
Yeah, and my buddy Mike from Travel Bar, and just tons of
He and I are
awesome
simpatico in a lot of ways. Very grumpy fellows.
You're grumpy and you like whiskey.
I'm tempted to reach out to him and get him to let me have Wednesday night shift there, because currently the bar's only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I was like, I'll come in and open Wednesday and just be angry at people.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay, I'll carry on the brand. I can do it.
He's like, I don't got enough staff. I'm like,
It's a good culture fit. I think
it.
that's what they call it on LinkedIn.
Oh
these
man,
days. Yeah.
totally. That'd be amazing. And you'd be back in the old hood.
yeah, right.
You haven't done that since Prime Meats
Just
days.
down the street.
Or John Barleycorn's.
Corn. I worked at both.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I got my share of ponytail lashings from Foo. Karen Fu would be on the bar, and she would have her hair in a ponytail, and she would move so fast that thing would whip around, and just anyone who was behind the bar with her would walk away with whip scars.
I miss that.
Yeah, she's great.
Well, anyway,
Younger days, Dave.
yeah.
Younger days.
Totally. Well, for anyone who's listening out there live this week, check out so a lot of bars basically they're doing like Manhattan menus for Manhattan Week.
I'm happy to get on board because it gets you get your audience engaged and whatever. I wish I'd have known. In Maury Margo, we claim to only make 3 drinks, and the Manhattan is one of them. So I'm happy to spread the word, even though I didn't know about it. So I'm glad you went. I was invited, but I was away in Belize. Don't feel bad for me.
Yeah. You better believe it.
It was unbelievable.
Well, okay. So before we wrap up here,
we need to get some food in us to chase down all this whiskey we're having. Good God.
I do want to say this though. It was kind of serendipitous timing for me and my wife to be here because the Manhattan cocktail, and I know I've said this a bunch of times, I'm sure, but it was great to be able to have this conversation with Dale and Philip Green and Amanda Schuster. Because the Manhattan cocktail is what made me become a bartender and move to New York City.
Oh. Okay, let's hear this story.
I started collecting cocktail books when I was 12 years old.
Yes, I know.
And I was hanging out. I owned a motorcycle and scooter shop in Oklahoma City, and I was working in a guitar shop, and then my band was playing. I did everything in my life. I was a graphic designer. Everything that I had as a hobby. So I thought I'd worked in professionally. And I sold my business and my band's on tour, and I'm just hanging out at my friend's bar. It was called Electro Lounge. It was the only cocktail bar at the time in Oklahoma City. And so my buddy Brian Neal, the owner, he was the first person to ever make me a proper martini, stirred with orange bitters. This would have been early 2000s. So in Oklahoma City, that was a real rarity,
Yeah.
But he made me a Manhattan one day, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do with the rest of my life? I bought my house when I was 19. I professionally was really advanced and all this stuff.
I was a late bloomer. Damon was a very early bloomer.
Yeah, the industry called to me, and I was like, you know what? The only I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do with the rest of my life? I was in my early 20s, and I was like,
what am I going to do with the next 60 plus
years? I was thinking about that too, but I didn't own a house. I think I was exceptionally proud of myself because I was
the house ownership,
the
house ownership, the business ownership in his early 20s.
Yeah, I graduated high school in art school ahead of time, and all. It was just kind of a crazy thing. I just wanted to be an adult.
Yeah.
I was already drinking in bars at 18, 19.
And it's crazy because now you don't act like one at all.
Well, the age is finally catching up with me. I used to think I was cool for getting away from drinking, at a very young age. But proper drinks, Anyway, so I order a Manhattan. He makes it for me, and it's sitting there, and I'm just thinking, I'm talking to him a little bit. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with the rest of my life? And the answer was literally right under my nose. Manhattan cocktail. It's like, I've been studying cocktail books for like a decade and making cocktails at home for myself. I was like, I know a lot about cocktails, although I never worked in the industry. And you learn a lot more from working than you would just from reading.
Sure.
But anyway, yeah, the answer was right under my nose, the Manhattan cocktail. And so I got into the industry. I was a waiter for 2 weeks. Then I was the bartender. And then 2 weeks later, I was the bar manager. So a month in, and he told me, he was like, you've never worked in the service industry before. Because I asked him if he would train me to bartend at his bar. And I was like, yeah, but I think I know what I'm doing, man. And he was like, well, if you go get a job somewhere else for 6 months, if you last 6 months in the industry, then I'll train you. So he shows up to the bar a month later, and I'm the bar manager. And he's like, what the fuck is going on here? And I was
that's
like,
kind of my question, honestly, hearing this story.
Yeah. And he was like, all right, come by on Tuesday. We'll start. The Manhattan cocktail. So when we talked at the top of this show about running into Del DeGroff and Philip Green at Keen's Steakhouse, the magic of New York City, that's what happened. That's what got me here. And, it's just been constantly growing since then. But like, yeah, that's what I did. And the fucked up thing is when I got to New York City, it took me a really long time to find a bar job because I didn't have
2 years New York
experience.
Yeah.
Fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
So I and I learned a lot from my own experience. And I've taken a lot of chances on people who had no experience in the industry.
Yeah.
Henry O.
Oh, yes. Oh my God.
He's only worked in one bar. He started as a bar back at Grand Army.
Yep.
2 nights a week, and immediately I was like, you've got to be a bartender. You've got this in you. And he's to this day one of my favorite bartenders. He's never worked at another bar. He doesn't work there anymore. But that's one of those things.
Henry O, my experience with Henry O, of course at your bar, but before your bar, Henry O was a longtime regular at Maury Margo.
I think I met him there.
Henry O still it'll never be beaten because we don't serve them anymore. We used to serve Scotch eggs at Maury Margo, so it's a hard boiled egg that's wrapped in sausage and then deep fried. We're a vegan company now, so we can't do that. But when you do that to an egg, it comes out kind of the size of like almost a tennis ball, right?
Yeah.
Like it's bigger than an egg for sure. He holds the record for the most of those eaten in any one evening. He sat there and had several drinks with us and ate 7 Scotch eggs over the course of the evening.
That guy can put
that's like eating a meatloaf.
Yeah.
Yourself.
I know. Yeah. 7 doesn't sound like a lot, but like the size of these.
Eat 7 eggs.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Eat 7
and then
eggs.
wrap them in sausage.
Yes. And then
deep
chase
fry
that
them
down with an entire pack of sausage.
And do this while drinking nothing but all spirit cocktails at Maury Margo.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's the performance enhancing drug in this equation.
Now,
right
so okay, we're definitely getting
they're
lunch
settling your stomach as you go.
It's time for lunch, guys.
It is.
Especially
it's been really great catching up. And
yeah, likewise. And I love that we just got to do this show together, just the three of us today.
I wish our guests could have made it. I still haven't heard from them. I'm a little bit worried. This is a person we all know and love, and I'm like for them to not be answering at all for calls and texts. The worry is starting to brew up. I thought they'd walk in halfway through, and they have not. So
no, we'll hope
everything's all right.
In business.
We'll keep you informed.
Well, anyway, that's the magic of New York, right?
Yes, it is.
And that's what this show's been about today.
That's right.
So yeah, everyone out there, start drinking fruit brandy, and don't be an idiot about it. Like understand the greatness of what it is, but also definitely grab yourself a Manhattan this week and any other week, really, for that matter.
You can make a Manhattan with the fruit brandy.
You can absolutely.
Let's make an apple brandy Manhattan. Let's go.
Yeah, isn't it called
with
Jersey
Dale
City?
DeGroff tomorrow.
That's what we're going to have at the bar right now.
All right.
Let's do it. I know they got it here. So yeah, let's do it. Awesome, guys. So it's been really amazing getting to actually be in the studio for the first time in almost 5 years for me.
Incredible.
With you guys. And I'm so glad to be here at Roberta's, and we are definitely going to enjoy some pizza and salads and stuff. Everyone out there, thanks for listening to the show. I'm so glad that we're just back, we've been doing this remotely for so many years now, and just being here feels great, and
it does. I want to mention one before we go away, even coming back this time, the experience of watching our little shipping container out back of Roberta's Pizza become this sort of I jokingly said earlier, it's like a tumor now. It's in the middle. Roberta's has grown around us. They've grown on top of us. the shipping
Blanca.
container, the shipping container that is Heritage Radio Network is now in the center of Roberta's Pizza.
I know.
And the whole Blanca, empire kind of thing going on here. And to see the people bustling through the window as we do the show and waving at us and talking to us or trying to talk to us. It brings a level of excitement that I miss.
I kind of forgot about it. Like just that element, like
the fishbowl.
Yeah.
And as Greg said, like who's looking at who? We're looking at them. They're looking at us. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I'm glad we got to do the show. I'm so glad you're back in town. I wish you could come back every week, but
I'll start making it more of a regular thing.
Well, yeah, the pandemic got in everybody's way, and
that old thing.
Yeah, the whole thing.
But yeah, it's been great being in the studio with you guys, and thank you to
getting
Aaaaand,
a nice
our producer.
buzz. I have a nice buzz. We didn't mention it very much. We've clipped through about a half a bottle of 100 proof whiskey. We had some Fernet minis to start. It's I'm feeling good. Let's have some lunch.
Yeah. Let's do it. And yeah, like I said before, thanks to Aaaaand, our producer today, who's been really kicking ass for us for a long time now, handling all of our remote recording.
All the logistics and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
It's great. I'm sure it's a lot tougher on him when we're running around all over the country rather than just being here in the room.
Yeah. And so we're thankful for him to be here today with us and in the studio. So yeah, that's it for the Speakeasy this week. Go get yourself a Manhattan. Make it with some brandy. Check out Heritage Radio Network for many more programs like this one. Click on the beating heart to donate to the station. Keep us going. And until next week.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Actually, cheers.
An actual cheers in person. Yeah.
So you don't shun the devil with your
The Speakeasy is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food and drink radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.